From the royal blood of the Plantagenets, the House of Lancaster was born under the banner of the Red Rose, a symbol of passion, loyalty, and claim to England's throne. But across the realm, the white rose of the York bloomed in defiance, and what followed next was not just a war of kings, but a war of roses. We saw in the English civilization video how Matilda had her crown usurped by her cousin King Stephen, and that led to a brutal civil war known as the Anarchy. Her son, Henry II, restored order and built an empire stretching across England and much of France, the Angevin Empire. Henry II is directly connected to one of the key mechanics in the House of Lancaster civilization, the scutage. Although available in the game only during Imperial Age, scutage actually appeared first under Henry I. However, Henry II made it law. Instead of sending knights to fight, vassals could now pay a tax, and the king would use that money to hire professional soldiers to fight for him. Manors are unique buildings to the House of Lancaster in Age of Empires 4, and they can start being built in Age 2, in Feudal Age. But historically, they existed for centuries, for many centuries, as the backbone of England's rural economy. And of course, they were still vital under the Lancasters, financing wars such as the 100 Years' War against France and the War of the Roses. Fun fact here, there is actually an unused Dark Age model for the manors. That means that the developers were considering to have this building available already in Age 1, in Dark Ages. Manors in the game provide population space and generate passively food and wood. Later, they can generate gold as well once scutage is researched. You can build up to 3 manors and expand up to 11 with the technologies, condensed land practices, and open field system. The manor system was part of the feudal system and was a method of land ownership. The landowner, or the lord, lived in the manor house, while laborers and peasants, they lived around it and worked the surrounding lands. The land was worked following the three-field system, or the crop rotation for subsistence farming, meaning the villagers would only produce to satisfy the basic needs of the community and their own. In an open field system, each villager would own a strip of land, and there they would produce their goods, rotating the crops around to keep the soil fertile. Later on, we see the condensed land practices appearing with focus on maximizing the productivity of these lands. And we can see this land consolidation as enclosures. So in reality, the order of these technologies should be reversed. Henry II had many children. One of them was Richard Lionheart, the Crusader King. Another son was John, the shy, pious, and weak king that was forced to sign the Magna Carta, and he lost nearly all of his family's lands in France, leading to the collapse of the Angevin Empire. Once John dies of dysentery in 1216, he passes the throne to his son, Henry III. The Lancaster has a bonus called wool industries, and this means that they start the game with more sheep and they gather food faster from them. In real life, wool was England's true treasure. Wool was so important to the English economy that until today, the Lord Speaker of the House of Lords sits on the woolsack, a cushion of wool. That's a reminder of the main source of English wealth in the Middle Ages. Landowners, for example, they started counting their wealth in terms of sheep. And some even developed direct trade routes or trade links to cloth manufacturers in Europe abroad. And Henry III's successor, Edward I, ordered total extermination of wolves across England. Edward even employed a knight to get rid of the wolves, Peter Corbett. Peter later even got the title of the Mighty Hunter, and all of that just to make the English countryside a perfect natural sheep farm. As a variant of the English, the House of Lancaster shares the defensive brig bonus, meaning town centers, keeps, towers, they all shoot an extra arrow, and their villagers also carry a short bow. Brig is an Old English term from Anglo-Saxon origin, very old, meaning fortified settlement. And I explain all of that in the English video if you're interested. Henry III wasn't really into war. He was a religious man, and his most impressive achievement was the reconstruction of the Westminster Abbey. Starting in 1245, the abbey was replaced with this grand structure in the Gothic style that we see today. In the game, the landmark Abbey of Kings can be built to reach the feudal age with the Lancaster, just like the English civilization actually. It offers a healing aura just the same, but instead of producing the king unit, you can make up to 4 Lords of Lancaster from it. The lords are unique to this variant, and they are heavy melee infantry like men-at-arms, but they have a passive ability that grants a bonus to units that are next to him within their aura. In the game, we can see the lords wearing this quartered gambeson with the French blue and the golden fleur-de-lis and the English golden lions. But if we consider the feudal age the foundation of the Lancaster house, then they should be wearing something more like this. The English only started using or wearing the French coat of arms in 1340, when Edward III declared claim to the French throne, and with that starting the 100 Years' War. The House of Lancaster produced numerous powerful lords, earls, dukes, and these lords would command armies and provide the leadership in battle and fights. So I think these lords are analogous to the function of the lord unit in the game, to provide this boost of morale, supplies, and so on. In the game it's reflected with this bonus to units nearby, because they have a nice commander, a strong commander. This landmark is based on the Westminster Abbey, where kings have been coronated since William the Conqueror's conquest of England in 1066. During the reign of Henry III, the House of Lancaster was founded in 1267. This distinct line derives from his second son, Edmund Crouchback. Edmund was granted the title Earl of Lancaster, along with vast states in the north, including the Lancaster Castle. And this castle, honestly, its origins are completely unknown. But it's believed that it was built somewhere in the 11th century on top of what was before a Roman fort. Initially, the castle was used to oversee the borders, and later became a court and a prison. The Penal Witches' Trial, for example, from 1612, is one of the most famous witch trials in England, and they took place exactly there, at the Lancaster Castle. In the game, the Lancaster Castle has 3 abilities that spawn batches of units. Since the last patch, each manor you have will decrease the cost of those abilities. And on top of that, with this landmark, manors become stronger and are equipped with arrow slits. One of the units you can get from this landmark is the Demi-Lancer. The Demi-Lancer are heavy melee cavalry units, unique to this civilization, but they are not as strong as knights, for example. However, these units get upgraded for free and immediately, automatically, as soon as you reach the next age. In real life, Demi-Lancers were a type of cavalryman mounted on horses without armor. The lance that they carried was also a lighter version from what a man-at-arm would actually carry. They even wore an open-face helmet instead of the traditional closed helmet. And interestingly, they would also usually carry with them 2 pistols. And that is because they were mostly common between the 16th and the 17th centuries. Yep, a little bit out of sync here. Henry III's son Edward was crowned Edward I, King of England, in 1272. Now, Edward I and his son Edward II, they weren't the best kings ever. Edward I was also known as the Hammer of the Scots. He went to war against Wales and he also claimed the throne of Scotland. It was a very bloody period. And if you're interested in this period in history, I recommend watching the movies Braveheart and The Outlaw King. In any case, Edward I has direct connection to one of the unique units of this civilization, the Hobilar. The Hobilar was a light cavalry unit originated in Ireland. They rode these small, unarmored ponies called hobbies in the Irish style, meaning no stirrups, no bridle, as little equipment as you possibly can. They were perfect for scouting and for maneuvering around bogs, marshes, and forests, which is a type of terrain and geography that you can observe in Ireland and the north of England as well. These cavalrymen were also armed with seans, which is a type of butter knife. I'm kidding, it's a type of Irish fighting knife. The seans don't have this handboard part. Hobilars were also called mounted infantry, meaning they would dismount to fight. They would only carry the minimum that they needed to remain lightweight, and they would rely on the hobbies and their favorable characteristics to navigate the fields. Edward tried to prevent the import of these hobbies to Scotland, and he did that by intercepting the ships bringing them from Ireland, and he would just take them for himself. He was very impressed by the abilities of the Hobilar and used them extensively in Scotland. And of course, they're ponies. They're cute. It's really sad that during this research I realized that these hobbies, they don't exist anymore. Now, another unit deeply connected to Henry III and Edward I is the yeoman. The yeoman replaced the archers in the civilization, and they have more range than them. And on top of that, they have a synchronized shot ability that can be unlocked once it's researched in Castle Age. With this skill, you can deal damage in the area, and it's really rough for your opponents to dodge. Under Henry III, the longbow starts to emerge as a very special weapon. And in the 13th and 14th century, yeoman started to refer to a freeborn man that was above peasants, but not there yet, lower than nobles. In short, longbowmen were a type of soldier, like a military title or a role, while yeoman was a social class, like a status in the society. The yeomen had lands and they had time to train because they were not peasants working 24/7. And because of that, many longbowmen were yeomen, but not all yeomen were longbowmen. For example, Robin Hood was a yeoman. He had lands, he had people working for him, and he was an extraordinary archer. In Feudal Age, you can also research the billman technology, which replaces the spears from the spearmen with billhooks. This technology also makes the spearmen give a debuff to the armor of units that they attack. Bills were actually agricultural tools for trimming trees. I'm not kidding. But they were adapted for military use with additional blades. The build that you see in the hands of your units in the game once this is researched is an Italian build. In any case, Edward I, he reformed the military system, and he required every able-bodied man to own and know how to use a weapon fitting for this person's rank. And for most of the society, honestly, this meant either a bill or a bow. Later on, we see the billmen even more prominent in the battlefield, especially in front of the longbowmen to protect them from the cavalry charges. Edward II was crowned in 1307, and his reign was anything but smooth. He favored a lot of foreigners with lands and wealth, and in a way that angered the English nobility. And many nobles at the time, they were almost as rich, if not richer, than the king himself. So you don't want the nobility against you. They also provide you with army and soldiers. You need them on your side. On top of that, his close relationships with men stirred a lot of scandal. And unlike his father, he had no interest in war, preferring gardening than picking up some weapon. His weak rule led him to abdicate. He was the first king to abdicate, and his own wife and her lover actually were behind it. They were organizing behind his back to remove him and force him to abdicate. And his son, Edward III, started ruling, but under his mother, Isabella, and her lover, Mortimer. However, once Edward III was of age, he decided to hit back. He had his mother arrested and her lover, Mortimer, was executed. Edward III was a very important king. He restored stability in the country, he made up with the nobility, and he, increased the power of royalty. More than that, he was the first king to use English as the official language. Because until now, we have been speaking French. He also proved himself as a very capable warrior and dreamed about retaking their lands in France. Edward III claimed the throne of France starting the 100 Years' War, and that's when you start to see the new English coat of arms quartered with the fleur-de-lis from France. His eldest son, Edward the Black Prince, died young but left a son, Richard II. His other sons, Edmund of Langley, the first Duke of York, and John of Gaunt, Duke of Lancaster, would give rise to the rival houses that fought in the Wars of the Roses. Richard II was crowned in 1377 when he was 10 years old. This was a very troubled period because of the plague and revolts of the peasants due to lack of workforce in the land. Too many people died and the taxes were too high to support a war, so it was impossible to live. However, he saw himself as divinely chosen. He was very charismatic, and he was the first king to demand to be called Your Highness. It was funny that we have reports that he would isolate himself during events from the court. He would just sit very far from everyone, and he was just like poker face the entire night, just observing everyone, looking at everybody, what they're doing, and just listening to conversation, but never interacting with anyone. As if he was like a god, that cannot be touched and cannot be bothered. Although he was actually, it's reported that he was really, really handsome, he ruled with vanity and a bit of paranoia. Eventually, he became crazy in a way. He lost his mind. He was in such a delusional space and state that he ended up arrested. He was removed by force. He was in no condition anymore, eventually to rule the country. And what we see now is his cousin Henry rushing from banishment in France, coming back to England to take the throne.
I, Henry of Lancaster, challenge this realm of England.
Henry IV is officially the first Lancastrian king. During his time, however, he constantly had to deal with revolts and complications in the country, and both Henry IV and Henry V are portrayed in the movie The King. Henry V is the second Lancastrian monarch in power, and he is a legend. He literally revived the 100-Year War against France, and his victories would just pile up. The famous Battle of Agincourt actually happens under Henry V. And you can play this battle yourself in the game in the historical battle section. Since the Angevin Empire and its collapse, Henry V was the one to hold the most amount of lands in France. Henry V's son, Henry VI, was crowned King of England when he was 8 months old. Yep, that's not really appropriate, is it? And then, since Henry V reconquered parts of France, Henry VI was both King of England and France. Funny enough, it was another shy king that did not like to fight. He was not interested in war at all. And with Henry V's death and the rise of Jeanne d'Arc, England kinda loses its momentum in the 100-Year War. And Henry VI wasn't interested in putting too much effort there either. And meanwhile, the Duke of York was complaining to the king, hey, we have to keep going, we have to do something about it, we have to mark our presence and show some dominance in France. But the king just didn't care. He just wouldn't listen to the Duke. But what we can take for the game here is that although he was not a king interested in war, he was a very smart and intelligent person. He was really interested in learning and in religion. He was a dreamer, he was an artist, he was a scholar, and he was the one to found the King's College in Cambridge, envisioning it as a place of prayer, study, and service to God. And that same landmark appears in Age of Empires 4 as a landmark to go to Castle Age with the Lancaster. This landmark reduces all technology costs and offers unique technologies as well. For example, the Burgundian imports a technology that unlocks early hand cannoneers and makes them cheaper. So you can start making them in Castle Age instead of the usual Imperial Age. Burgundians were innovators of the 15th century and they invested heavily in firearms. Now here's the connection. The Burgundians were actually England's allies during the 100 Years' War. And this alliance likely influenced the English awareness and adoption of firearms and special artillery. The Collar of Asses technology increases the damage of knights and demi-lancers against heavy units. The Collar of Asses is a livery collar, usually made out of gold and used as a symbol, as an insignia, that would represent status or allegiance, for example. And for the Lancastrian kings, the Collar of Asses was like a royal badge. And it's funny that it took me actually a very long time to understand the name of this collar, but eventually you do see the S's. And the Werewolf Trebuchet is a technology that is going to give your trebuchets more range and HP. The Werewolf is believed to have been the largest trebuchet ever made. It was made in Scotland, commissioned by Edward I, the Hammer of the Scots, during the War of the Scottish Independence in 1304. And reportedly, it took 5 master carpenters, 49 workers, and at least 3 months to build. The other landmark that you can make to go to the Castle Age with the Lancaster is the White Tower, just like with the English, and it acts as a keep. This landmark is based on the Tower of London, and I also talk more about that in the English video. Now in Castle Age you get access to another unique unit, the Earl's Guard. This unit basically replaces the men-at-arms. And what's special about this unit is that they can throw daggers from time to time, so they have a ranged attack. They also spawn every time a keep is built, including the keep landmarks. It's cute in the game how they're dressed, however these units, they wear proudly their red robes and they carry heavy warhammers. And historically, their weapons are authentic. The warhammer grew in popularity around the 14th and the 15th centuries, especially to counter armor, while the dagger was every soldier's last resort. In 1453, Henry VI has a mental breakdown, and he starts to show serious signs of mental illness. This is the last drop. So Henry VI, the last Lancastrian king, is deposed and imprisoned by Edward IV, son of the Duke of York. With that, the Lancastrians lose the throne and the York rise. Of course, that wouldn't just slide like that. What came next was a civil war between brothers and cousins, known as the War of the Roses, between the White Rose of York and the Red Rose of the Lancaster. Many battles took place everywhere in the country, with ups and downs for both sides. One of such battles is the Battle of Taunton, one of the historical battles that you can also play yourself in Age of Empires 4. The Battle of Bosworth was the last battle in the conflict. The Lancasters, under the leadership of Henry VII, with support from Welsh exiles, France, and unhappy Yorkists, they give the last blow to the Yorkist forces. And the marriage of Henry VII to Elizabeth of the House of York officially ends the conflict. And the symbol of this union is the combined Tudor rose, with the red and the white roses. Now, the landmark Wingard Palace that you can build to go to the Imperial Age is a perfect example of this union and the beginning of the Tudor dynasty. This landmark produces units in batches with a discount, including the demi-lancers that we talked about and some siege units. The Wingard Palace is based on the Hampton Court Palace, one of the finest palaces in England, and you can find this unified rose everywhere around in the building, on the walls, on the ceiling, carved in the wood, everywhere you can see those roses. The Lancaster civilization also has the Houses Unified bonus, which refers to the unified houses, which is now the Tudor dynasty. That's the unification of York and Lancaster. This bonus provides free Earl's Guards whenever a new keep is finished, and provides extra attack damage to Earl's Guards and Demi-Lancers for each keep. However, of course, there's a cap, and you can increase that cap if you build the Berkshire Palace to go to Imperial Age. The Berkshire Palace is a keep, and it was based on the Round Tower of the Windsor Castle. The Windsor Castle was one of the principal residences of the Plantagenet Dynasty, from which both Lancaster and York descended, as we saw earlier in the video. Later Tudor kings or Lancastrian heirs maintained Windsor as a symbol of a unified house. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you could learn something new. I hope you enjoyed, and Merry Christmas to you all. Please give the video a like if you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe, and I see you guys in the next one. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Bye bye.